They are out of time, out of place, and scientifically impossible. These are the 20 mysterious artifacts that shouldn't exist. Let's begin the countdown. Number 20, the billion-year-old nuclear reactor. In 1972, scientists studying uranium ore from Oklo in Gabon noticed something that shouldn't have been possible. The uranium samples were depleted, the exact signature you would expect to find after a sustained nuclear reaction. Digging deeper, researchers realized the site had functioned as a nuclear reactor continuously for an estimated 500,000 years. The strange part? This reaction occurred 1.8 billion years ago. Dr. Glenn T. Seaborg, a Nobel Prize-winning chemist and former head of the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission, argued against the natural phenomenon theory. He noted that for uranium to undergo fission, highly specific conditions must be met, including the precise concentration of U-235 and water purity. According to him, nature doesn't just stumble into that level of engineering. While some scientists insist it was a geological fluke, the scale and precision of the Oklo reactor remain a radioactive mystery. Number 19. The London Hammer. In 1936, while hiking near London, Texas, a couple named Max and Emma Hahn stumbled upon something strange, an ordinary-looking rock with a piece of wooden handle protruding from it. Curious, they took it home. Years later, when the rock was finally broken open, it revealed an iron hammerhead completely encased inside solid stone. At first glance, the hammer appeared familiar, similar to tools used in the 19th century. But the real shock came from the rock itself. Geologists identified the surrounding formation as dating back to the Cretaceous period, over 100 million years ago, long before humans were believed to exist. The discovery, now known as the London Hammer, quickly ignited controversy. Skeptics argue that the hammer is modern and that mineral-rich groundwater could have rapidly hardened around it, forming a concretion that only appears ancient. Researcher John Cole and others point out that such processes can occur in decades, not millions of years. Still, supporters of the mystery aren't convinced. The hammer's unusual composition, nearly pure iron with traces of chlorine and sulfur, and its surprising resistance to corrosion raise further questions. Today, the artifact is displayed at the Creation Evidence Museum, where it is presented as a challenge to conventional timelines of human history. Is the London Hammer simply a misplaced modern tool trapped by natural processes, or does it represent evidence of something far older than we're prepared to accept? Decades later, the stone may be cracked, but the mystery surrounding it remains solid. Number 18. The Wedge of Aiud. It was 1974. Workers digging near the Mureș River in Romania found 3 objects buried 33 feet underground in sand. 2 were fossilized mastodon bones, dating back at least 10,000 years. The third object, however, was a metal wedge that looked like part of a complex machine. When researchers analyzed the Wedge of Aiud, the results were baffling. It was composed of 89% aluminum, alloyed with traces of copper, silicon, and zinc. The problem is that aluminum wasn't produced in effective quantities until the 19th century because it requires extreme heat and electrolysis to extract. And yet, here was a piece of machined aluminum buried alongside Ice Age bones. The oxide layer on the metal was thick, confirming it had been in the ground for a very long time. Aeronautical engineers suggested it looked like a landing gear support for a VTOL aircraft. But unless mastodons were flying jets, this object simply shouldn't exist. Number 17. Unexplainable fossils, the Meister print. Geology tells us modern humans have existed for roughly 300,000 years. Yet from time to time, discoveries emerge that seem to contradict that timeline. Objects found in places and layers of rock where they simply shouldn't exist. One of the most controversial examples is the Meister print, discovered in Utah in the 1960s. At first glance, it appears to be a fossilized human footprint, one that looks remarkably like it's wearing a sandal. Embedded within the print is a crushed trilobite, a marine creature that went extinct more than 250 million years ago. If both the footprint and the trilobite are genuine, it raises an uncomfortable question. How could something resembling a human footprint exist hundreds of millions of years before humans were supposed to appear? Then there are the strange, semi-ovoid metallic tubes discovered in chalk deposits in France. These chalk layers are dated to around 65 million years old, placing them near the time of the dinosaurs' extinction. The metallic objects were reportedly found fully enclosed within the rock, not embedded through cracks or later contamination. Their composition and purpose remain unclear, and no widely accepted explanation exists for how manufactured-looking metal structures could end up sealed inside prehistoric strata. Skeptics argue that misinterpretation, natural formations, or later intrusion can explain these anomalies. Others believe they point to gaps in our understanding, or evidence of something far older than our current models allow. Whatever the truth, these discoveries continue to fuel debate and remind us that the story of humanity as past may not be as settled as textbooks suggest. Number 16. The Betz Sphere. While most artifacts on this list are ancient, this one comes from 1974. After a fire near their property in Florida, the Betz family found a completely seamless silver metal sphere about the size of a bowling ball. It wasn't just a metal ball, though. The family claimed that if you rolled it, it would stop, change direction, and return to the person who pushed it. It would vibrate at low frequencies and supposedly reacted to music. The US Navy eventually examined it and determined it was made of high-grade stainless steel, but concluded it was not explosive. While skeptics claim it was likely just an industrial check valve ball that fell from a truck, the object's odd behavior captivated the nation. The sphere eventually vanished from public view, taken by family members who were tired of the media circus, leaving the true nature of the object unresolved. Number 15. The Lycurgus Cup. At first glance, this 4th century Roman chalice looks like a masterpiece of jade green glass, but when light shines through it from behind, the glass instantly transforms into a glowing, translucent red. For decades, the cup sat in the British Museum, baffling experts who couldn't explain this color-shifting property. It wasn't until the 1990s, when researchers examined broken fragments of the glass under a microscope, that they found the answer. And it was shocking. The Roman artisans had impregnated the glass with particles of silver and gold, ground down to about 50 nanometers in diameter. That is less than 1,000th the size of a grain of salt. This is precise, deliberate nanotechnology. The mixture had to be exact. If the ratio was even slightly off, the effect wouldn't work. This suggests that Roman craftsmen 1,600 years ago were aware of how to manipulate matter at the atomic level, a feat modern science only managed to replicate recently. It forces us to ask, what other advanced chemical knowledge was lost when Rome fell? Number 14. The Nimrud lens. We assume the telescope was invented in the Netherlands in the early 1600s, but a discovery in modern-day Iraq suggests the Assyrians might have beaten Europe to it by 3,000 years. Discovered by Sir Austin Henry Layard in 1850, the Nimrud lens is a piece of rock crystal that has been ground into a distinct convex shape. It dates to around 750 BC. It functions as a magnifying glass, with a focal length of about 4.5 inches. Some experts believe it was just a decorative inlay for furniture. But Professor Giovanni Pettinato of the University of Rome proposed a bolder theory, that this lens was part of an ancient telescope. This would explain how the ancient Assyrians knew so much about astronomy, and why they described Saturn as a god surrounded by a ring of serpents. Could they see the rings of Saturn 2 millennia before Galileo? The lens suggests it's possible. Number 13. The Ancient Earthquake Detector. In 132 ADS, during China's Han Dynasty, inventor, astronomer, and engineer Zhang Heng unveiled a device so advanced that it still astonishes scientists today, the world's first known seismoscope. The instrument was a large, ornate bronze vessel, nearly 6 feet tall, decorated with 8 dragon heads positioned around its circumference. Each dragon held a copper ball in its mouth, and directly beneath each one sat a bronze toad with its mouth open, waiting below. To observers, it looked ceremonial, almost mythical, but the device was anything but symbolic. Hidden inside the vessel was a delicate mechanical system believed to involve a suspended pendulum. when seismic waves from a distant earthquake traveled through the ground, even hundreds of miles away. The vibrations would subtly shift the internal mechanism. This movement caused one, and only one, dragon to release its ball. The ball would drop into the corresponding toad, clearly indicating the direction from which the earthquake had originated. The device's accuracy was put to the test in 138 AD when a ball suddenly fell from the western-facing dragon. No one in the capital felt any tremor, and Zhang Heng was reportedly mocked for what appeared to be a false alarm. Days later, however, a messenger arrived with startling news. A powerful earthquake had devastated Longxi, hundreds of miles to the west, exactly where the device had pointed. Centuries later, modern scientists recreated Zhang Heng's seismoscope using historical descriptions, and the results were remarkable. The reconstructions worked, successfully detecting distant seismic activity and correctly identifying its direction. Yet despite these successes, historians and engineers still debate the exact design of the internal pendulum system. No original schematics survive, leaving part of the invention's brilliance shrouded in mystery. Built nearly 2,000 years ago, Zhang Heng's earthquake detector stands as a powerful reminder that ancient civilizations were capable of scientific insight far beyond what we often give them credit for. Number 12. The Baghdad Battery. In 1938, German archaeologist Wilhelm König made a discovery in the basement of the National Museum of Iraq that challenged the history of electricity. He found a collection of terracotta jars, each about 5 inches tall, containing a copper cylinder and an iron rod. The configuration looked undeniably like a galvanic cell, a battery. When replicas were built and filled with an acidic substance like grape juice or vinegar, they actually produced a low-voltage electrical charge. The jars date back to the Parthian period, around 250 BC, more than 2,000 years before Alessandro Volta supposedly invented the battery. Skeptics argue they were just storage vessels for sacred scrolls, but the design is far too complex for simple storage. Were these used for electroplating gold onto silver, or perhaps for a mystical shock in religious rituals? We still don't know, but the Baghdad battery suggests the ancients had power long before we plugged in. Number 11. The Dendera light bulb. Deep within the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, Egypt, a stone relief has puzzled researchers for decades because of how strikingly modern it appears. The carving shows several figures standing beside a large, elongated object that closely resembles a transparent glass bulb. Inside it is a coiled, snake-like shape that looks uncannily similar to a glowing filament. The object appears to be connected by a cable-like line to a rectangular box, giving the entire scene the look of some kind of powered device. To mainstream Egyptologists, the explanation is clear. They argue the relief is entirely symbolic, a stylized depiction of a lotus flower emerging from a serpent, an image deeply rooted in Egyptian mythology and associated with creation, rebirth, and the god Harsomptus. According to this view, the cord and box are religious elements, not technological components, and the resemblance to a modern light bulb is purely coincidental. Others aren't so convinced. Fringe theorists point out that the shape, proportions, and internal detail of the object closely match early electrical discharge lamps. Some engineers and researchers have even constructed working models inspired by the relief. When powered, these replicas produce an eerie glow, reinforcing claims that the ancient Egyptians may have possessed some form of electrical knowledge. No physical evidence of wiring, generators, or power sources has ever been found in ancient Egypt, and that absence keeps the idea firmly outside mainstream science. Still, the image remains difficult for many to dismiss at a glance. Is it simply a case of modern observers projecting familiar technology onto ancient symbolism, or a visual clue hinting at knowledge long lost to time? The relief at Dendera continues to keep that question alive. Number 10. The Saqqara bird. In 1898, archaeologists excavating the Padiamun tomb at Saqqara uncovered a small wooden object casually labeled as a bird. For decades, it sat largely unnoticed in museum collections. But when modern researchers took a closer look, the artifact raised unexpected questions. Rather than resembling a falcon or any known bird, Its shape looks strikingly similar to a fixed-wing glider. Carved from sycamore wood and dated to around 200 BC, the Saqqara bird features straight wings and, most notably, a vertical tail fin. Unlike the tail feathers of real birds, this upright structure resembles a rudder or stabilizer, an essential component in modern aircraft design. The absence of horizontal tail feathers only deepens the mystery, as the form appears engineered rather than naturalistic. Aviation experts and aerodynamicists have built scale replicas and tested them in wind tunnels. These experiments showed that the design is capable of generating lift under the right conditions. Some modified versions, with small stabilizers added, performed even better, suggesting the original design was at least close to functional flight. Mainstream Egyptologists maintain that the object was likely a child's toy, a symbolic offering, or a decorative standard mounted on a pole. They argue that ancient Egyptian art often stylized animals, and that no supporting evidence exists for ancient aviation technology. However, researchers such as Khalil Masiha have proposed that the Saqqara bird reflects a practical understanding of aerodynamics, perhaps used as a model, a teaching tool, or a representation of flight principles. Whether it was a simple toy or evidence of surprisingly advanced knowledge, the Saqqara bird remains an unsettling artifact. It blurs the line between symbolism and engineering, leaving open the possibility that ancient civilizations understood more about flight than we once believed. Number 9. The Piri Reis map. In 1929, historians stumbled upon a map drawn on gazelle skin. Verified as the work of Turkish Admiral Piri Reis in 1513, the chart displays Europe, North Africa, and the coast of Brazil with reasonable accuracy. But then, it gets weird. The map depicts Antarctica, a continent not officially discovered until 1820, over 300 years later. Even more shocking is the topography. Piri Reis drew the coastline of Antarctica without ice. Geological evidence suggests the last time Queen Maud Land was free of ice was at least 6,000 years ago. How did a 16th century naval officer possess data from prehistory? That question remains unanswered. Number 8. The Dropper Stones. In 1938, archaeologist Chi Pu-te led an expedition into the Bayankara Mountains on the China-Tibet border. Deep inside a cave system, he found hundreds of stone discs buried under layers of dust. They looked like phonograph records, 9 inches in diameter with a spiral groove. But under a microscope, that groove turned out to be a continuous line of tiny hieroglyphics. In 1962, a researcher named Tsum Nui claimed to have deciphered them. He said the text described a spacecraft crashing 12,000 years ago, piloted by beings called the Dropa. The scientific community mocked his translation, and the stones have since vanished from public display, leaving only grainy photos and a massive conspiracy in their wake. Number 7. The Voynich manuscript. It has been called the most mysterious book in the world. Rediscovered in 1912, the Voynich manuscript is 240 pages of code, bizarre botanical illustrations of plants that don't exist on Earth, and astrological charts. Carbon dating places it in the early 15th century. Some of the greatest codebreakers in history, including those who cracked the Enigma machine in World War II, have tried to decipher it and failed. Recent theories suggest it's a medieval women's health manual or a clever hoax. But until someone can actually read the text, the Voynich manuscript keeps its secrets. Number 6. Artifact. In 1961, 3 rockhounds searching for geodes near Olancha, California, made a discovery that would ignite decades of controversy. When they cracked open what appeared to be an ordinary stone, they found a mechanical object embedded inside. The object consisted of a porcelain cylinder, surrounded by metal components and copper rings, nearly identical in appearance to a modern spark plug. The find quickly became known as the Coso artifact, named after the nearby Coso Mountains. One of the discoverers later claimed that a geologist had examined the surrounding material and estimated it to be around 500,000 years old, a date that would place it far outside any known period of industrial technology. However, the identity of this geologist was never documented, and the dating was never independently verified. Before the artifact could undergo rigorous scientific testing, it mysteriously disappeared. What remains today are only X-ray images, photographs, and second-hand reports. Those images show a spring-like structure and metallic components consistent with early 20th century spark plugs, particularly models manufactured by Champion in the 1920s. Skeptics argue the explanation is simple. The object was a relatively modern spark plug that became encased in a concretion, a rock-like formation that can form surprisingly quickly under the right mineral conditions. Supporters counter that no definitive proof of a hoax was ever established, and the lack of the original artifact makes it impossible to settle the debate conclusively. Without the physical object to analyze, the Koso artifact exists in a gray zone between geology, misidentification, and speculation. Whether it was an ordinary piece of forgotten machinery or something far more anomalous, its disappearance has ensured that it remains one of the most debated, out-of-place artifacts in modern history. Number 4. The Copper Scroll. Found in 1952 near the Dead Sea, this scroll wasn't written on parchment, but etched into pure copper. It wasn't a religious text, it was a treasure map. The scroll lists 64 locations containing hidden caches of gold and silver, estimated to weigh over 160 tons. It's believed to be the treasury of the Second Temple, hidden before the Roman destruction. The scroll ends with a cliffhanger, mentioning a second silver scroll that contains the final keys to the location. That silver scroll has never been found, and the treasure remains lost to history. Number 3. The Cocknow Stone. Hidden in a housing estate near Glasgow lies a 5,000-year-old mystery. The Cocknow Stone is a massive slab covered in prehistoric cup and ring marks. First excavated in 1887, the geometric spirals and patterns baffled archaeologists. The site was visited so frequently and vandalized that authorities buried it in 1965 to protect it. It was unearthed again in 2016 for 3D scanning. Theories range from astronomical maps to ritual sites, but the truth is, we have no Rosetta Stone for these markings. It is a message from the Bronze Age that we simply cannot read. Number 2. The Stone Spheres of Costa Rica. In the Dique Delta of Costa Rica, hundreds of perfect stone spheres litter the landscape. They range from bowling ball size to massive 15-ton boulders. Known as Las Bolas, they were likely created between 200 and 500 AD, but their purpose is unknown. The precision is startling. Many are nearly perfect spheres. Tragically, many were destroyed by workers who believed they contained gold. Were they navigational aids, status symbols, or aligned with the stars? The stones are silent. Number 1. The Great Wall of Texas. We end where we began, with a geological anomaly in Texas. In 1852, farmers in Rockwall County hit a snag while digging a well. They uncovered what looked like a massive, ancient rock wall. Excavations revealed a structure that appeared to be stacked stones, with archways and window-like openings, stretching for miles underground. Geologists insist it's a natural sandstone dike formation, but architects who have viewed the sharp angles and mortar-like substance between the stones aren't convinced. If it is artificial, it predates any known civilization in North America by tens of thousands of years. Natural wonder or ancient ruin? The jury is still out. From the depths of the ocean to the mines of Texas, these 20 artifacts challenge the very timeline of human civilization. Are they evidence of lost advanced societies, extraterrestrial contact, or simply misunderstandings of the past? Which one do you think is the smoking gun that proves history is wrong? Let us know your theory in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit that like button and subscribe to Signal 49 for more investigations into the unexplained. Thanks for watching.